Hi, welcome to the Catalyst Sessions again. I'm Bill DeYoung from the St. Pete Catalyst. Maybe you knew that already. I'm happy to see you. Even though I can't see you, I know you're out there. And thanks for joining us. I'm so happy to welcome Beth Gelman, who's the Executive Director of the Florida Holocaust Museum today. Hello, ma'am.
Hi, Bill. Great to be here.
We both have Samuel Bachman, the great Lithuanian painter. Let's start by talking about this outdoor exhibit that you have of his work. That's very innovative. You actually have paintings on the outside of the building.
Well, since our doors have been shut, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, we
Yeah.
really wanted to do something that would share our collection with our community. And so this is sort of our little gift to the community. And Sam's work is so incredibly gorgeous and multi-layered. This exhibition is called Beautiful Questions, and it was done by our director of director of interpretations and collections, Erin Blankenship. And she, with the whole museum, has had a long relationship with Sam, and she has had personally. And it's really a beautiful way to not only think about the Holocaust, he's the Holocaust survivor, he created these paintings in order to try to make sense of his world, the world now. And so in this moment when we are all trying to make sense of our world, we're in such a strange place with the pandemic and civil unrest and so many other things, fires in California. I think it's an interesting way to use the arts to help us work through issues that are in our lives.
He is, as you say, a Holocaust survivor, and he's been painting for many, many years, obviously. And
Very prolific, yes.
how many pieces are out there? I saw the photo somewhere of the building with these. Are the actual canvases outdoors? Are they reproductions? What are they?
Oh, they're reproductions.
Well,
they're 8 panels.
I was going to guess, but yeah.
Right, they're 8 panels. And there's some questions, and there are ways for you to go up onto our website to use your phone, and I think it's QR codes that we're using. And so you can get more information about the artwork, about Sam. It's really beautiful. I encourage everybody to come out. It's free, it's outside.
Well, let's talk about the virtual world, because that's obviously what connects us on the Catalyst Sessions in a lot of ways. Well, it's what's connecting us right now.
Right.
The museum remains closed. Is there an opening in the future, or you have kind of transitioned to pretty much everything being available virtually? Yeah.
So instead of thinking of us as a museum, and I think that is easy to do, especially if you live in our community, we think of ourselves as our mission. And the museum is one of the portals that we have to communicate our mission. The other portal we have has been this virtual world. We do it through the education that we are bringing to every state in Florida. And so we had already had quite a bit online and in this virtual arena.
Yeah.
The museum itself, it's so bittersweet to have the doors closed. We're doing so much work. We're busier than we ever were, but it's so hard not to have people in the museum. The museum was designed so thoughtfully when it was built, with some very narrow pathways that take you on this journey so that you can learn step by step about the Holocaust, and you can connect to individuals through that.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it was not created for the pandemic. Those narrow hallways, we had to really think carefully about how we could allow people back in and how many. And it's not like an art museum or even another type of museum where you might go to look at a painting and you want to see one painting, but there's too many people. And so you go around them and you get to the next painting. If you do that with the Holocaust, you start with everything being fine, you go around some people and suddenly you're in the Warsaw Ghetto.
It's the
So
journey. You're right.
you're not getting what you need to from the experience.
Yeah.
Now, my staff, including Aaron, who I spoke about, and my operations director,
Hmm.
Ron Borsellino, and this whole team they've built has been looking at that. And we are actually getting ready to open our doors. I'm excited to talk about that.
Oh, good.
The plan is to open our doors briefly to our members on on November 9th, which is Kristallnacht,
Hmm.
the night of broken glass,
Yes.
just to see how things are going to be working. We have a new timed ticketing system. And then in December, we will start being opened for weekends for our members and for first responders and teachers. And then January's the big opening.
Eventually the public, sure.
Then we're open in
Well,
January. So
what you're saying to me, Beth, and you know, obviously correct me if I get it slightly wrong, is that the virtual experience is in a way just as rich because you're so well kind of decked out there to take people on this journey. Am I correct in saying
So
that?
I would say it's the next best thing.
Okay.
And in some ways, there are aspects of that that are better. Some of those aspects we are going to be incorporating into the tours that we and the way people access the museum when they're inside.
Mhm.
One of the partnerships that has come out of this pandemic is with USF's IDEX, who have been doing 3D imaging of many of our objects and artifacts. And so if you go to our collection database, or if you
Yes.
go to our virtual tour, there's links to it. There are certain objects that you can actually manipulate and turn around and see all the different sides on the computer. So when we reopen, it won't be with the audio wands that people are used to take
Yeah.
tours. It will be with personal device tours. And our goal is to incorporate those same things. Not only that, but we have a lot of testimony that is up on our virtual tour.
Yeah.
I should say our virtual tour is because we have one virtual tour of our permanent exhibition,
Yeah.
History, Heritage, and Hope. And the other is of what was a wonderful exhibition right when we closed, Beaches, Benches, and Boycotts, the civil rights in Tampa Bay.
Can we talk about that one? I'm sorry, my chair is falling down here.
That's okay.
Beaches,
We're all doing the best we can, aren't we?
Beaches, Benches, and Boycotts. You won some sort of award. I wrote down here, the Southeastern Museums Conference Gold Award for 2019.
Yes, thank you.
Well, you know, hitting the high notes here. So can you describe that exhibition? And it's still available virtually for people to look at. Is that right?
So this was an exhibition that we originally did, like the beta of this was about 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I can't believe it was that long ago.
Right.
And we worked with 35 community groups to create this exhibition. And it was this very small exhibition. And it was just, so many people loved it and were walking up and saying, hey, that's me in that picture. Or,
Right.
oh, I would love to give you an artifact for this. So we did it, 2.0, I guess. And it tells the story of the civil rights movement in Tampa, in St. Pete, and in Sarasota. And we look at it with what was happening during the national civil rights movement. And then, as we always do, we try to connect one person to one person. And so we talk about these individual stories that happened in the 3 areas that are covered in the exhibition. What's exciting about the virtual tours is that you can actually take a virtual tour in just one community. So you can just go through seeing Sarasota, or you can just go through walking through St. Pete. It's really marvelous. And some of those, the IDEX, the 3D imaging, I don't know if they're in the tour yet, but they've been working on some of those artifacts as well.
Almost like you don't even have to open the physical museum yet. I mean, you've got so much going on here.
We do, and again, we have quite a robust partnership with the Department of Education, and so because we've been working with these districts that are so far away, often we go to the districts, but we've been looking into all these remote resources, and so when the pandemic hit, we were lucky enough to, I'm not saying we had the whole thing figured out, but we were on first base. You know, we had a lot more to do, but we were at least on first base. And a lot of people, including, I feel like the students and the teachers and the families were driving around, you know, looking for the ballpark. So we did a full pivot in the spring to support who we feel is the most important and vulnerable stakeholders, which are our students and our teachers.
Yes. I'd like to, I have a sort of slight agenda here. I mean, for what it's
Okay.
worth. That's how we do things here on the old Catalyst sessions. You talking about, I'd like to talk about the mission of the museum. And to me, again, this is just where I come from. It comes down to one thing, which is those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And I mean, would you say that, you talk about hope and you talk about the present day and parallels and things, that's really what it comes down to. If you don't learn from what's happened, it'll happen again.
Right. I think that that is very succinct. I think that the idea that we have that we're using the lessons of the past to create a better future for everyone is very important. And right now, I think there are so many from the lessons of the Holocaust that are important. First of all, we're living in a time when we are seeing rising racism and anti-Semitism and other identity-based hatreds. And so it's important to be able to understand what happens when we allow those hatreds to grow unchecked. I mean, this is the worst that can possibly happen. And I think that a big lesson of the Holocaust, we understand what the perpetrators did. Well, we don't understand it, but we see what the perpetrators did. We understand what happened to the victims. But there were so many people there who were bystanders, who just let it happen, who did not use their voices, who did not stand up, who did not take action when it was asked of them. And I think that, especially right now, that's a really important thing for each of us to remember. There's huge differences in what's going on. I always like to say, to remind everyone, that the Holocaust was a state-sponsored event. And even though we are seeing these tides of rising racism, right now, our not only the state of Florida, but the country as a whole, the Congress, U.S. Congress just passed a bill, about Holocaust, making Holocaust education more accessible. A new bill was just passed in our Florida legislature. So what is happening? It's important to make sure that we see the difference between the Holocaust and now, while understanding that the threats are always real, and that it's up to all of us. It's all of our responsibilities.
Would you say that the purpose of the museum, I've been to the one in DC too, which is just such an experience, and that the purpose of museums like yours is, it's education. I mean, it's essentially, look folks, it's not like a sad phase in history. What we're talking about is something that could indeed be very, very real in your life.
Well, we've seen so many other genocides. I mean, we say never again, but we've seen so many genocides, from Rwanda, Cambodia. I mean, things that are happening right now. We're watching in the world that it is, and again, it is up to us to prevent that and to educate. But if you don't, as you say, you started with a wonderful quote. And so if we are not educated, it is difficult to learn from history. one of the challenges that we are facing right now as Holocaust education has become more robust is that many of the teachers in the classroom were not taught about the Holocaust themselves when they were in school. And so it's a much larger learning curve to learn about the subject and how to teach it grade appropriately. And so what's exciting to us is I'm going to say the buy-in, the understanding that this is important. And so many teachers, we work with so many teachers every year. Before the pandemic hit, we had worked with, I think, close to 700 teachers around the state. And we continued working with them through the pandemic.
Well, education, it's interesting. I was born and raised in St. Petersburg. I'm 61. And aside from maybe a passing reference to the Diary of Anne Frank, it was not part of my education in public school at all.
Right.
And, you know, I think the opportunity was there. If you're, I mean, you're just some dopey kid in school. If it wasn't, yeah, the opportunity was there. You could learn about it if you wanted to. And it wasn't, of course, till I was an adult that, you know, it shook me by the throat the way it should. I wanted to talk with you. There's a linear thing here about Trunks of Hope.
Sure. Oh, yay. Yeah. I'm so happy to talk about that. That's
yeah, so
great.
this is a program by which you send Holocaust materials and books to age appropriate to different grade levels in schools. Can you talk about that?
Oh, I'm so happy to talk about that because we're in the middle of a campaign and it is just going fabulous. We send these huge trunks. They are actual trunks. They are filled to the brim with classroom-sized books, sets of books, maps, you know, movies, posters, anything, tons of curriculum, anything that a teacher would need to teach about the Holocaust at their grade level. And we are also, I just want to say, we don't just send them out and say, you know, good luck. We have our education staff who are ready to assist and to talk through because there's lots of options. The really exciting part is for the last couple of years, we've been looking for a platform to put this, make this remote. And this year, of course, it's very critical with schools being hybrid learners at the very best.
It was handed to you. Here you go. Now you have to do this.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we found a fabulous partner in Overdrive, which is a system that many people might recognize if they take ebooks out from their public libraries. Okay. We are going to, so we are about to launch these, what we're calling virtual teaching trunks that will include you know, a classroom size group of ebook licenses for, so the kids can learn by reading online in a Kindle or on their computer. And then in that trunk will be many virtual resources, connecting them to our collections database, to our virtual tours, to different maps and timelines. And so we're really super excited about it. And the other thing I want to say, because we need to be proud about Florida, is that we were not the only organization that was pitching Overdrive, but that we were chosen to be the first museum of any kind to have access to this virtual platform. That is a huge win for Florida.
Good for you. That's fantastic. Before it was, it's not virtual yet, but this Overdrive thing is happening, what, next week, next month?
So soon we will be getting this. We hope to have it up and running by November 9th, which is, according to the new law, Holocaust Education Week. And so we're hoping to have that up and running by then for teachers to virtually check out.
Isn't that's not a broken glass, isn't it? November 9th, can you say?
That's correct.
Yes.
That's correct.
Well, what I wanted to ask you, Beth, was with the physical trunks full of stuff, how long have you been doing that? And what's the reaction been? What's the sort of feedback been on that?
So that has been our most popular resource, and I believe was created before there was even a physical museum. We were one of the first entities in the country to create something like this. It's been, I mean, it's pretty ubiquitous now. Often people have these boxes or trunks that they send out, but it's more than 25 years. We've had them, though I believe it was 25 years ago that this partnership with the Pinellas County School District came to be. And so these trunks were created in partnership with them, which is why, and every year or two, we go back, we look together at the trunks to make sure that they are grade appropriate, that they're the right materials. And actually, I'd love to give a shout out to the Pinellas County Foundation, Duggan's group, because they just allowed us to redo our middle school trunks. And so it's all brand new materials there. Some of the books are the same, some of the resources are the same, but it's all brand spanking new. And so we're really grateful.
Well,
for
but
that.
occasionally, I mean, you're getting, feedback that, boy, kids are really immersing themselves in this. It's working.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They are. We get demands not only from the state, but from all over the country of people who would like to get our trunks. And whereas Florida is our priority, if there is a trunk that's not being used, we're very happy to send it for a few weeks to Detroit or to Texas or to Alabama.
Can we talk about the origins of this museum? I know you came in 2013, and I have a question about that, but how long has it been here? I think it was the old Moss Brothers store from when I was a kid.
It used to be a bank. And I can't remember the name of the bank. It was before my time, but I will tell you that it was the bank that gave Walter Lobenberg, who's the founder of the museum, his very first loan in order to create his first hospital, because he was in hospitals. That's what he did.
Wow.
And so it was just some strange twist of fate that when they were looking for a building, that this was the building.
Wow.
Now, at the time, it's so interesting. It was huge to them. They thought, how are we going to fill, 30,000 square feet of of space? And now, we could have, the museum could be 3 times as large.
Of course. You came in 2013. You're from Chicago, which is where my family's from, by the way. I guess you and Tom came down from Chicago.
Yes.
Shout out to Tom, your husband, who's a great guy, a composer, and a very cool man.
Thanks.
This quote from you that, can I use this quote from you that came from an interview that I read? And
Oh, sure.
Take this in context, because you were smiling when you said it. When you came down for the interview, it occurred to you that being in charge of a Holocaust museum sounded a little bit like a bummer. It was something, again, take it in context, but gee, I mean, it's not on the surface a joyful experience, but you found something of a calling in it, didn't you? And can you explain that to me? How you changed?
Yeah. Sure. So when they reached out about the job, that was my first reaction was, oh, a Holocaust museum.
Hmm.
As I got to know the people during the interview process, I really fell in love with the people, not only the Holocaust survivors, who are just these amazing, unbelievably brave individuals, and who I continue to look to whenever any large decision needs to be made. But the people who are drawn to this mission are extraordinary people. I think I said that somewhere too. There is a quote from me, because the truth is I met more extraordinary people in my first 6 months here than I had in my entire life.
Do you feel, I guess it's kind of a dopey question, but I ask those too, in these years now that you know and you feel and you understand so much more than you did before you came in?
So a couple years, maybe a year after I got here, I understood, because I am a museum person, I understand museums, I understand education, I come from education. but I understood, but there was a language for Holocaust studies that I didn't really have mastery of. And for about a year, I really delved into that. And it was terribly difficult to me, for me. It was important and it was difficult. And I am incredibly grateful to the scholars and the researchers, and certainly we have amazing at our museum, our director of education and research, Ursula Shapinska, just extraordinary, her knowledge base. I am so grateful that they can live in this place where they continue to learn more about it. It is not a place where I can live. It is a place that I need to have as a base, if that makes sense. But it's very important for me personally, and I think it's very important um, to continue for Holocaust education to continue to be relevant, for us to be focused on the hope. Hope and resilience are some of the most important lessons that we've learned from Holocaust survivors, that they were able to get through the worst, I mean, the worst that humankind could ever think of, and rebuild their lives in a way where the ones that I am dealing with are heroes in their community. They are community leaders. And that's a lesson I feel to all of us. And I think maybe especially appropriate to this time when sometimes we tend to really go down to the depths, to remind ourselves that we all have the capacity, that resilience, if we have the hope and we have the right direction to be walking towards,
Mhm.
to make it through it.
You know, to go back to Sam Bach for a second, there's a famous quote where he says that art for him was a sign of his resilience. It's funny that you use that word, you know, because he came through it and was able to channel it. It was all in his head, and it was still there, and he's still with us, which is amazing.
It is amazing. And I'm a huge believer in the arts as a portal, not only into the Holocaust, but into our human heart. I'm so thrilled that our museums have opened up here. How lucky are we to live in this space where we have so many museums? And I am very hopeful that our performing arts venues will be getting back on their feet shortly. I think that not having them leaves a big hole in our community.
I'm ready for this to be over. Can we just say that? You know?
I think that there is no one that would disagree with you.
No.
And it is hard right now. We're doing a lot pretending that this is fine and we're going through our lives and we can take it. But I think it's also important to acknowledge our circumstances, but not bow down to them.
Beth Gelman, Executive Director of the Florida Holocaust Museum, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Oh, thank you. My honor.
Such a pleasure to talk to you. I wish you all the best, continued success. And in January, when it's safe, I'll be back.
I'm
See you
so
then.
glad. See you there.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.